Welcome, everybody, to the Modern Romantic Podcast, where we celebrate and inspire romanticism by featuring passionate people doing incredible things. I am Emily, and Trey is not with us today. He decided to take the holidays off, and I don't blame him one bit. So I am here with Keith and Rachel from Flower Press Studio. They make gorgeous art with pressed flowers, and I am so excited to talk to them. Welcome to the podcast, Keith and Rachel.
Thanks, Emily.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I said yes, totally. It's great.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it. And your cat, Ivy, I don't want to leave her out. She deserves to be recognized.
Thank you.
Our little spoiled cat.
In case she comes back and makes an appearance, at least we've introduced her.
She's usually in the newsletters and the signature.
Yeah, awesome.
She's our studio cat. Yeah.
Studio cat. I love it. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
It's like we have a podcast cat, so yeah, I support this. So you have been doing, first of all, I didn't know how to describe the art that you do, and I don't know if you struggle with that too, but for people who maybe are just listening and can't maybe immediately see what you do, can you describe, you do more than just press flowers. You're also shaping them.
And I mean, it all starts with pressing all the flowers that we can, and like just literally pressing everything that we possibly can. But before you press the flowers, like Rachel's a much better presser than I am.
Well, Keith has taken over doing all the art, so I have to do something. So I press the flowers.
Yeah, last year was a bit different than this year in terms of how we are operating.
But yes, we press flowers and then Keith makes really cool things out of them.
But pressing flowers is like, there's a step for it where you have to like deconstruct like the flowers. Like you have to imagine what the flowers, like what the outcome is that you want after it's all pressed.
Like you can't just take a flower and stick it in a book and close it and be done.
Like
there's more to it.
Most of the time is prepping the flower to go into the press. That's where most of the time actually comes from, is like, taking little scissors and cutting off, little buds or little branches and stuff like that. It's true.
Yeah.
It's very time consuming.
Oh, I bet. It's kind of like sewing, I guess. That's what I can draw from anyway, where the sewing part is like step 4, because step 1 through 3 is getting your pattern, cutting it out, making sure you're getting the right size cut, prepping the edges if you need to, lining things up, and then you get to sew. So I understand.
Right. There's definitely preparation involved, for sure. Yeah.
And then, go ahead.
No, and then there's a lot of steps after they come out of the press too. So it's time consuming.
Sure.
Like most crafts, they're time consuming, and sometimes you wonder why you're doing it, but here we are.
But I guess if you were to put it in simplistic terms, is yes, pressing and then just designing with what you have available. If you wanted to think about it that way.
It's important though, because I feel like the value of what you do, outside of it being a fabulous art form, is also in all of the time put in the prep and the, finishing the product or whatever. So if you're selling pieces, there's more to it than just smashing flowers between objects and making them flat and dry.
Yes, 100%.
And also just, dealing for everybody who does pressing flowers for bridal bouquets, that is just, it's a whole nother thing. So, which we are trying to get out of the bridal bouquets just to like make your own original art, which will be really cool to focus on next year. So
do you press other things like what besides flowers?
Yeah, so last year was just all flowers, and then this year,
except for that one.
And then we did some vegetables. We had a bouquet last year that was
it was a flower farmer. Well,
it was a flower
farmer,
and then the bride actually owned a vegetable farm
and they shared like they leased the same land.
Yeah.
So the flower farmer made her bouquet and put vegetables in it. So we're like, all right, we're gonna press these.
Yeah.
Like
So we
there were like beets and eggplants and peppers and carrots, and so we combined. Like we tried pressing them, and it was actually really cool.
Wow.
Yeah. So this upcoming year will be all about like experimenting with fungi and fruits and more vegetables, and just getting into other mediums of pressing, I guess, just to keep experimenting and have fun with it. Because,
yeah, why not?
I want to press a bunch of vegetables to make a full pressed like fruit and vegetable piece, so I can see it people hanging it in their kitchen, or a culinary piece would be really neat.
We've both worked in restaurants like quite a lot, and Rachel grew up in a restaurant, and so our backgrounds are like all service-based food stuff.
Do you have a passion for food then too?
Eating healthy?
Eating clean food is important, and where it's sourced from. So I would say we have a passion for food. I certainly do. I used to be a baker too, and my mom owned a restaurant, so it would be neat to incorporate more foodstuffs into this medium.
I love that. One thing I noticed, because I'm big into gardening, vegetables primarily, but I like flowers too. And one thing I always noticed was okra plants have gorgeous flowers, and they're big and they're beautiful and amazing. And it's kind of missed because we eat them. Well, we eat the seed pods as okra, but the plant itself is gorgeous. And I've grown them among my like front yard landscaping because I just love the flowers that much, and they will bloom all summer. And I always thought about that.
Sorry to interrupt, but that's like a awesome point, because vegetables have beautiful flowers before they turn into the vegetable. So I was thinking it would be really neat to eventually make the flowers before they become vegetables, like press all those flowers and make a piece out of that too. But I do know what okra flowers look like, and they are really cool for the few pieces of okra that I've been able to grow.
Yeah.
I think I've maybe gotten like five fruits total.
Wait, when did you plant?
I don't think our climate is humid enough, and winter sometimes comes very early where we are. So it's like they're just starting to develop, and then it'll snow in like September. So
okay. Yeah.
Or maybe I'm just not starting them early enough. Anyways.
It's relatable. I'm in Minnesota. Middle of Minnesota, so the season here is very short too, and so I've started them inside in February because otherwise I don't get okra.
Zone 4 for gardening. Yeah, that's cold.
Zone 4.
But it's humid there though in the summer, which could help maybe.
It can get humid. I also lived for 15 years in South Carolina, where okra will grow like wildflower. It's amazing. Wildfire is what I meant to say.
Wildflower.
That was a pun that was absolutely not intended. But it grows well there because it's hot and it's humid and the season is very long. And here, I got it to grow just fine this year as long as I started it early. And we started out hot, and then it kind of mellowed out for the summer. But we got some okra, not a lot, but we got some.
I don't think I watered enough here. We get maybe 12 inches of rain a year in Denver, so that doesn't help very much either. So
12 inches a year?
Yeah, for rain.
So snow is different.
Snow is different, I think.
Yeah.
It must be, yes.
Yeah, I think. What's this precipitation?
Because an inch a week is what they recommend for gardens. So for most plants, but depending on the plant. But an inch a week is that's like a good rainstorm every week. And that's odd. That's hard to find, I think.
Here.
In most places. Even here.
Yeah.
I don't know. That'd be awesome if we had one rainstorm. That's like perfect. One rainstorm a week.
We had a spring like that. I think actually this past spring was like that, and it was amazing. And then the rain stopped in June. So
we've had some weird weather.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have snow now?
Hasn't really been snowing either.
It was like it's been 60 degrees the past 3 days.
Yeah.
Denver is like that though. It's a little schizophrenic weather patterns.
A little all over the place.
Yeah.
So do you grow your own flowers then?
We have like three whole really big presses downstairs with all of our garden flowers that we pressed over this past few months or past few like spring,
The last
and
season.
fall, the last seasons. Yeah, the last whole season.
The flowers we grow are very they're like reseeding annuals
or perennials and like
perennials that do well in this climate. I'm not like trying to plant dahlias or grow ranunculus. I did both of those things and I did not dig up the tubers, and none of my dahlias came back. So dig up your tubers.
And then if you don't cover your dahlias, they'll get eaten like so quick. And then
we have a lot of grasshoppers here. And then also ranunculus, I didn't take out the bulbs and I think I watered them too much. So they literally rotted and none of my ranunculus came back. But that was also like, I did that the year we started this business, and it was just like so crazy our first year doing this that I didn't have the energy or bandwidth to do anything else. So,
but so you had to get from a point where you were like, okay, we're pressing flowers and we're doing this cool art, and then poof, now it's a business. What happened before the poof? Like, what made you turn that into a business?
The poof started June of 2022. And so about a year before that, Rachel had her garden of, we had poppies and calendula and cosmos, pretty simple stuff. And like, I was like, I'm going to press some flowers.
And I was like, okay, Keith, have fun.
Yeah.
You just decided to press flowers.
Yeah, I don't know, because there's just so many flowers. I don't even know why I don't know. I just was like, let's just press some flowers because there's so many. And so we just pressed a bunch, and I made a few pieces, and I was, learning how to frame the pieces and like learning how to make frames. And it was just all hobby.
That was all fall 2021. Basically fall 2021 is kind of when.
Yeah. And I was working a job, and so we incorporated the business, and we're like, okay, let's go into bridal bouquets because it's at least something to start to like get our name out there, and it's easier to like build a relationship with florists or wedding planners and stuff like that.
And Denver has a good wedding market too.
And Colorado has a really good wedding market as a destination state for weddings, and because there's all these mountains and it's gorgeous and blah blah blah. But that was like the easier route to go into, is like, let's just start with weddings instead of trying to create. We didn't know what we were doing at anything at all.
Neither of us are artists. Like, we are not artists. Keith was not an artist before this.
I drew stick figures. I love drawing stick figures.
I love this though.
Those all day long. And so basically, like, we had like a handful of bouquets and deposits down and stuff like that for the last season, and
2022 season.
Yeah, and then it kept going, like more deposits and stuff like that, and we reached out to a whole bunch of florists and whatever, like built those relationships up, and then
it got a little crazy.
I got laid off in June, and that's when our business actually started to go somewhere, like more deposits and more conversation, emails coming in, like intake forms and stuff like that, and so that's basically, we ended that first season in a horrible mental state because it crushed us, like kind of in spirit, like physically, like we didn't leave the house, we didn't see friends, we worked every single day, and that was not fun. Grateful for the business.
It was fun for a little bit. It was like, oh my gosh, we have like 30 bouquets this month. We have 50 bouquets next month. We have 70 bouquets.
It was just fun in the moment, but after, when you reflected about what like you just went through,
and then you had to design all of them, you were like, oh my gosh, what did we do?
Now the work happens, right?
Yeah.
and so it was just like, okay, something needs to change. And that's why it didn't take us long to figure out something that would need to change, because Rachel had breakdown moments of quitting and like
Quitting my own
midnight,
business.
driving off and then like,
Well,
I'm like,
that was
"Where's
after
Rachel?"
a bride complained about this piece that was
It was a really cool piece, and like I think we're pretty sensitive people.
And I was like, I'm done. We're not doing this anymore.
Because it's like, well, with any artist, like when you
It's
put something in like so many hours and like the process and everything, and then you like have all the stresses of them like sending the piece and like mailing it and then to get back, and it's just like you just got shut down. It was just,
well, in all fairness, Keith did a totally different style for that piece, so it wasn't what she was expecting to get. So now we do like previews, like here's a picture of what your final piece will look like. Are you okay with this?
Yeah.
But also her piece, the one that she didn't like, and we actually, I think, gave her almost a full refund because
it was the first
didn't
time.
have a backbone then. And I like freaked out, and I just didn't want to deal with any more emails or any more complaining, or just like I don't like conflict. I avoid it. Which I think this business has taught me to be better with conflict and be okay with it and be able to sit with it. But yeah, where was I? Oh yeah. So now we like photograph the bouquet before we glue it and be like, this is what you're going to get. Or like,
this is a similar like layout that you'll get, and you either get it approved, and most likely like it's always been normally fine. I think we had like 3, and this is like it's so minimal. It's like 3 people, but
it's so easy to focus on the negative.
Yeah,
you have all these wins, and then you focus on like the 1 or 2 people that didn't like it, and which is like anything.
I don't know.
You read comments of anything on Instagram.
That's what I was gonna say. You can have 300 amazing comments, and then you have one that's like, "You guys should quit working and doing what you're doing," and that's the one you're.
And you're like, okay, yeah, we will.
Yeah, stew on that one and ignore the rest of the 300 amazing ones.
Well,
humans are weird.
With any of the negative comments, you literally you cannot battle them. You just leave them be, because it's so bad to even try to. You want to stick up for yourself so badly, but it usually leads to nowhere. So either you just block them and you just they're done and you move on, and
we've only done that with one person.
Your energy on other things, but like reading through all of the nice comments and like becoming pretty social with some people is extremely amazing, like feeling. I know it's just a platform and it's all virtual, but some of these people is a pretty awesome connection that you make with certain people.
For sure.
And you also notice, you start to notice the people who comment on a lot of things. Like you start to notice the people who are really there watching what you do. So like, I think we've made some nice relationships through our Instagram account, which has been kind of cool.
That is cool. Yeah. You've kind of created a community, whether you wanted to or were trying to or not.
We weren't trying.
Neat community going on.
Yeah. There's this one really cool gal in New Zealand, and the Penny Farms.
No, Penny Farms.
Yeah, she's really funny. I don't know. She just has a quirky personality, and she grows flowers and has chickens, and we're like, we can't wait to go back to New Zealand and meet this person in person.
That's
so
awesome. Yeah, that's how it should be. That's how it should
be. And I mean, there's a lot that we could talk about good Instagram people. I mean, there's good people everywhere. It's just the stupid negative comments that come out of nowhere, and they're like, they derail you, and then you're like focused. You're so focused on this negative comment, and you're like, I should just.
Yeah, there was one really bad one on Thanksgiving Day, and I was like putting all this energy into it. Like, what should I say?
Rachel literally we were outside by a fire, and Rachel was there for about an hour
trying to figure out what to say.
And I'm like, I don't really care at all.
And then we eventually got there, and then it was fine.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I can relate to that. Yeah. There was one photo I posted once, and it's relatable because Well, okay. I imagine you get people who think they know better than you about flowers and pressing flowers and all of that. And that's what happened to me. I did a photo shoot with a horse. I've done tons of photo shoots with horses, but this one decided to get a horse expert in the comments. And it didn't need it. I was creating art. I didn't do a portrait anybody paid for. It was just a piece of art we decided to go out and create. And it was for fun, and it's supposed to be fun. And we went out, and then someone tore it apart in the comments, and I didn't see it right away, but everybody else involved with the photo shoot saw it first. And when I walked into work one day, and one of the girls from the photo shoot was there, and said, "Did you see Instagram?" And I was like, "No, I've been driving here." And she's like, "Oh, your Instagram blew up." And I went, "What?" And we looked, and it was it was on fire. And
Is it still all on there?
No, I took it all. I deleted it all. Yeah, I didn't want it up there, and I didn't want it to remind me of ugliness, and I just blocked the person. And but it's relatable, yeah, because then that was in my head for days after that. Like, did we really do anything wrong? Did we do something? Like, maybe we should think about this a little. No, I was making art. It was supposed to be fun. The end. It can be the end.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think with negative comments, the best feeling to combat a negative comment is when your audience fights the fight for you. And it really is, it's so humbling and so absolutely amazing when other people are literally sticking up for you and they're being your voice. And it's like, it's just cool to have that happen.
I mean, there's only like 3 comments.
Yeah, there's not a lot of negative comments that people are like, "Why are you creating flower art?" Like, there's not much of that happening. Like, there's been thousands and thousands of comments through our stuff, and 99.999999 are absolutely awesome. Like,
well, and it should be. Like, how in the world are you saying something negative about flowers and art? Like, come on.
Well, one comment was print over print pricing, which I thought our print pricing is actually pretty reasonable, but I get it. It's like, it's a print, but there's also a lot more that goes into a print than we would have ever thought. You know, I had no clue about any of this until 6 months ago. So, and then one was about how you should leave all the flowers for the birds and the bees. And that one cracked me up. Because it's like most of these are wedding bouquets and we're getting them, like, all the flowers were going to be thrown away anyways after the wedding. And then
so we would
and then also deadheading flowers is great. Like, you deadhead them and more grow back.
And you're supporting your local community of working with local farms, flower farms, and like local florists. And
anyways, but yeah, that, and then like you look through her Instagram account and she had a vase of flowers sitting on her counter. And it was like, okay, anyways, how is this any different? It was just,
we can move on from Instagram.
Yeah, we can move on.
Well, I'm glad you have here we are. I'm glad you have an overwhelming amount of positive comments and support because that's how it should be. And thank you, Velvet, for your 2 cents. She agrees with me.
Oh, sweetie.
So
we love cats. So
yes, I love that about you guys. That's awesome. And can't go wrong. Well, you could, I suppose.
I think in a past life, I would study cat behavior.
Keith wants to be a cat behavior.
A cat behaviorist.
Psychologist now.
It'd be amazing. Domestic cats and wild cats. That'd be so fun.
It would. My cat Oliver is a Savannah, so he is part African serval. And so watching his little bit of wildness in him comes out once in a while. And he's like such a small percentage that it's not really noticeable, but every now and then there's a little thing. And the farm I got him from told me these are the things to watch for, and they were right. And so every time he does that, like, for instance, he'll run with his tail straight over the back of his back, which is that's something a wild cat does. And most domestic cats don't. And so little things like that I pick up on, and I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is cool.
The one time he got out of the house, there was only once where he got out and he actually took off, like running. And he was running with it was this moment of, he was running at full, what I thought, who knows, maybe only him, looked like full speed down the neighborhood. Like, at the time I was kind of in the country, so he took off and was running toward the neighbor's yard, which was like an acre away. He's running full speed toward their yard. Thank God it wasn't toward the street. And he's just tearing. And I'm like, this is beautiful. This is a beautiful moment. He's like a cheetah and he's just running. And I get to watch this cool moment of him like full out running. But he's running away from me.
Yeah.
Like, no, come back.
Yeah.
But it was this beautiful slow motion moment.
How'd you get him back?
I think he freaked. I'm trying to remember. He kind of freaked out once he realized how far away he was. And then I didn't want him to feel like I was chasing him. So I just sort of slowly walked over and he stopped. And I was able to grab him.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been that far since. He's a little nervous about it now. I think he scared himself. And that's okay because I cannot have him out there running around.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was the 16-pounder. Yeah.
It's a big cat.
He is.
Yeah.
He's big. He's very long. Very athletic. Yeah, anyway, I didn't need to get into that.
No, it's fine.
So you have this style that is also unique. And that's one thing I wanted to talk about with like how you arrange the flowers and things on your artwork is something that's really kind of a cool, different thing that I noticed right away when I started following you. Because I've seen pressed flowers before. I've pressed 4-leaf clovers and things like that. And I mean, at a rudimentary level anyway. So, but where did this style come from? Did it just morph over time or did you just try something out and went, oh, this is it?
Other people were doing
there was
deconstructed things.
Yeah, like
pieces.
you can, deconstructed is just a broad term of not having flowers in like a bouquet type of shape. There's, you can use whatever term you want. It's just we deconstructed is just like
all the flowers are more individual.
They're like, exactly. And then, creating the rhyme and rhythm of it and like the fluidity of like how the piece looks to like someone's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That just happens.
Keith
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I just started it and I tried doing like some deconstructed pieces for a couple
brides.
Brave brides because it was something different than what we were doing. We were just doing what everyone else was basically doing, which is just like this kind of style. And then we started like, hey, there's this deconstructed style. Do you want to try it? And a couple said yes. And it was like, oh, this is really cool visually. And then it was kind of learning more and more, like, do I want to, like, is it going to be really, really in depth, like full of all sorts of variety and stems? And I don't pre-plan anything. I guess the pre-planning is like what flowers are going to be used in the piece. But to me, it's like all colors go together. And I think I just start in the lower left-hand corner and I basically do tiny sections. So like I could put down a huge section of flowers and then I will glue like one piece down and maybe take everything else away and then start over. And like, it's like a building block, like literally you're building at the start, like so small because you're trying to figure out a path basically as you're designing of like what you want this to look like.
Okay.
And I have no idea what it's going to look like to be the end results.
Awesome.
But I have all the pieces, like everything's scattered in front on the tables in front of me. And I'm like, I have all these things to use. And now I just had to use them. And so it's just experimenting.
Keith's brain
Keith.
works a little different than a lot of people's. Like he's really goofy, and some of his ideas you're like, okay, this isn't gonna work. But he just kind of marches to the beat of his own drum, which I think has actually worked really well. Yeah. Flower art.
Like grafting flowers, when you're saying like I'll see a particular stem and then, you know, maybe invert it and be like, okay, there's this other stem from a whole different like flower species, but like somehow they go together, and like maybe I'll leave like, you know, a centimeter or a millimeter apart from them, but it looks like it's flowing from one stem to this whole different one. Mm-hmm. And I like when things like fit, you know, like
it's like a puzzle.
Yeah. It's basically a puzzle every time. And, you know, if it's like a pointy flower like this, I want it to fit perfectly and like in a perfect spot in the piece.
So he'll like pick up flowers and like scan over the whole piece of the flower
I'll be putting it down on the paper in all these different spots, and then I'll be this is the spot for this one. But yeah, it's basically just all experimental as I'm designing. So like all of the Instagram reels, they're so quick, and it doesn't show really anything of the overall, like what goes into it. It just is like little clips of.
You can tell from the shirt changes how long he's been at it.
Yeah.
Like whenever his shirt changes is another day.
That's good. I like that.
So.
But it's just standing for hours looking down, like, because I can't. Some artists will put their pieces on
like an easel. Because they just glue each flower.
But you're flat. You do yours.
I am flat. That's my vantage point, and it's probably not the best for my back and neck, but it's the way I see everything, because I'm also seeing all the flowers, like all the loose flowers that I can use. Like it's basically my paint.
It's bird's eye.
Yeah, and so I can see everything, and so I can just, I guess I can just visualize what I'm looking for. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. That's one thing that I like diving into, because your process in your, I guess I kind of believe that whether you realize it or not, most artists have various practices and rituals even to producing the art the way they produce it, whether or not certain tools always have to be on the right or the left of their workspace, or, you know, little things like that, what music is playing.
It's like your mise en place in cooking or baking, like setting up your space before you.
I have like the smallest thing is I always have my glue on my left side, and I have 2 tweezers that I sharpen with a file, so they're like razor sharp. Ooh. Rachel hates that, and I do sometimes.
Every time I use one of Keith's tweezers, I like totally wreck the flower because it just stabs the flower. And mine are much more dull, and it's like, okay, I could approach it at a decent angle rather than like putting the whole tweezer
used to that.
My tools are like razor sharp, and I like file it, so it's literally I can. And sometimes, you know, I poke my fingers and I like start bleeding, and they're very, very sharp, and that's my like clean start is like got my cardboard to glue on, and I got my glue, and like I angle my little cup of glue, and so like, you know, the glue funnels to one spot so it's not spreading over. Like I do have little things that I do, but it's not extraordinary like
routines.
I guess it's a routine.
Yep. Love it. You have a piece that I'm looking at on your Instagram from August, I guess it is. Anyway, so you've got it looks like it's a print you're holding up, but there is an original because that's how you make prints. And one of them looks like the pod of like a poppy. Maybe?
A poppy pod. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with the black background one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how you can't press that easily, can you?
We cut it in half.
So you slice it in half, and then there's a whole bunch of little seeds in the poppy pods, of course, and you can save them and just use them in your garden.
I have a whole box of poppy pods that I've saved from, or like of the seeds from all the poppy pods after we cut them in half.
I bet.
And I'm saving them for our new house when we move.
Oh, neat.
To throw everywhere. Yeah.
But yes, poppy pods are So the biggest thing, like, I guess I'm going to sidetrack just real quick.
Go for it.
So when you press flowers and the outcome comes out, and if it's not perfect, like let's say the stem isn't perfect, or the leaves, or there's crinkles, or there's even like some browning or whatever, imperfections are, I think, so fun to use in the pieces. It doesn't have to be this like pristine, like everything worked out in like this magical world, you know? It's just like, this is what it pressed. Like, this is like, we did our best with the press. Like, we followed exactly what we do with like changing out the paper like a million times and like blah, blah, blah. But like, this is what it came out to be. And if I think it can be used in the piece, like I will 100% use it. If it's missing petals off of a sunflower or whatever, like I'll use it, because then it just means I can fill in those little gaps of imperfections with like smaller little tiny things or stems or whatever. So it's just like, anyone that's ever like, if you're pressing flowers, like just like embrace the imperfections. And
I love that.
To a point.
Yes, if it's molding and it's like completely brown, like I would not use that in a piece. Like,
if you have bugs in your pressed flowers, because
well, some people do have.
There's a presser in Australia.
Bugs in there. Yeah.
What's her name? Oh my gosh.
I mean, if you're pressing bugs on purpose, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But if it's like you have maggots because it's molding and they're in there eating the.
There's this one I think it was some sort of beetle, like a tobacco beetle or something, maybe, that got into. They hatched out of a flower that was in one press, and I think it moved over to other presses. And this is someone who does bridal bouquets, and I think it was this whole fiasco. So now I think she stores each press in a plastic box, and she will freeze them. I don't know if she's still doing this. You can freeze them to kill the bugs, but you have to freeze them for like a week at 32 degrees.
Well,
I don't know what
the Denver Herbarium, they do
that's that. We visited the botanical gardens and in Denver, and they showed us their herbarium and like the process of it all. And they actually do freeze all their specimens like before they store them, just to make sure all.
But there's this like a regulated freezer, like temperature. Everything's like regulated in herbarium because they have species from like couple hundred centuries ago, because pressed flowers have a very scientific background to it.
Well, they do like soil samples, and they do DNA. They look at its DNA and like try to figure out where and like what's changing in certain areas. Anyways,
sure.
It's pretty interesting.
So they could be bringing back a bug from centuries ago that we didn't know was even around.
Or flowers are like totally non-existent in that space where it was before. So like if you're giving flowers to like a cities or like an herbarium, you're supposed to document it. So they can save that, and then let's say in 10 or 20 years, like they can keep understanding what the land is doing, and
like if there's invasive species or what's still growing there, or if
right. Fascinating. It's kind of like the bird book that my grandparents had. I inherited, and in this bird book, it's from like the 50s or 60s, and it has the migration patterns of these birds. It's called Birds of North America. You can look it up. You can get a current edition even. And
I think my stepmom may have had that.
Could be. It's probably a really popular book. It has all these illustrations of birds. So when you see one near you, you can identify it, and it shows like the winter, I almost said foliage, the winter feathers versus summer, and juvenile versus adult, etc. And then Josh had one that was more recent. He has a more recent edition, and we were comparing the two. And the migration and where the birds currently live is very different. Like even for cardinals or something like really common, they would like no longer be in this area that they used to be in. And I know it's birds, but it's kind of like a plant or a flower. That you know,
totally.
Yeah,
for sure.
Things change.
But it was fascinating to see how in the 40 plus years it had been, or whatever difference in the in the dates of these 2 editions of the same book, how it had changed was amazing. So I think it's neat that they track that sort of thing with plants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we're also talking about, because we were talking to them about how flowers fade, like pressed flowers will fade. They won't have their color all the time. And they're like, maybe it has something to do with like the molecular structure of the pigmentation of each flower. Like blues seem like they stay, blues and purples. But we've pressed some calendula, like orange and yellow calendula, and that's totally faded out within 2 years. Whereas we've seen, 20, or they had specimens of delphinium from the late 19th century.
Wow.
And they still had their blues.
Wow.
Like the delphinium was still blue. So
that's also,
cool.
That's like one of the biggest questions that we always got was like fading. Like, why are you doing this? Like, it's going to fade, or does it fade, or whatever like that. And yes, flowers do fade, but that's also okay. It's just the same thing as like your imperfections of
we're aging, we get wrinkles, but that doesn't mean you throw us away. I don't know.
It still is like really gorgeous
seeing
the piece
evolve
as it is. Yeah, exactly.
And you can get into color correcting. A lot of people color correct now, but we have not.
What does that mean to color correct?
You paint petals or you paint the flowers, but it's never going to be the exact color of the
people
flower.
do. Some
but
people
they do a pretty good job. There's a few people that do a pretty good job, and it's mainly where we see it is people that are doing broader bouquets.
Okay.
Is they'll color correct like
a lot of
roses
and white anemones or anemones.
Anemones.
Who knows?
Anemones, I think
say that either.
They are.
Anemone.
It's the spring flower, and the white ones they always press horribly. Like their veins of them always brown, even if they're. Sometimes you get like a really perfect press on them, but not often. So a lot of people will color correct anemones.
Yeah.
White ones, and it looks great. So
painting though, huh?
Yeah.
So in a piece, I guess that's one way to preserve the color then would just be to buy print, because then you're not getting the original.
That's kind of where we started doing like originals to actually make prints out of. Because I mean, prints is you can get like an absolutely amazing, like when you look at a print, it almost looks basically 3D.
If you capture it
correctly. And capturing it is a whole nother process in itself that Rachel does. And but then it won't fade, and you have it forever. But if people like if someone's buying an original from this, like there's so many things that we go over with them. A lot of basically disclosures, be like, we are very big on communication. It's just like, this is what's going to happen. We don't
want to hear from you in 5 years and you be like, my colors and some of the flowers are gone. It's like, we told you this. We're very transparent.
That's how it works. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got to be transparent, I think, in anything you do nowadays, or else it like somehow comes back to you.
Yeah, managing expectations is huge.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Do you forage a lot of your own, or any? I guess that's.
So this is a really touchy subject.
Is it?
We don't.
We don't actually.
And we are actually talking to the Denver Herbarium, and when they go out, they get permits to go collect certain species. And we don't ourselves.
Like I have walked down the street in our neighborhood and there's a huge field of what's that flower? Cleome. Okay. It's like kind of like a weed. It grows like crazy. And yes, I've gone to pick some of that. Like they mow it down and it's back 2 weeks later. But like I wouldn't go into a national park and be like, oh, we're in Yosemite National Park and we're picking their flowers and we're going to press them. Like I would never do that.
I wouldn't do it if we were like, hey, let's approach a national park and do like a national park wildflower piece of flowers that grow in this specific national park. And we would contact the right people in the national park to get a permit. Like, but we wouldn't do wild picking. And some people, I know some people are going to be like, wild picking is fine. And other people are going to be like, wild picking is definitely not
And
fine.
we just don't want to hear it.
And we don't want to be in the middle of being like, is it fine or isn't fine? There's so many flower farms that are all over the place and have an insane amount of diversity in the flower farms. And so, and then there's farmers markets, and there's all sorts of ways to get really beautiful, fresh flowers. So we just do that as like, we're supporting them, like they're growing it for a purpose, and it's absolutely amazing. Like you get to know the farmer, their practices, like what they're all about, and that's completely
I mean, in all
okay
fairness, we both drive around with clippers. Like I have a pair of scissors in my car, and if I see a bunch, like, you know, bachelor button here or cornflower, it grows like crazy just on the side of the highways. So I think when we first started, I was like, oh, bachelor button or whatever that is. I cut some, but also they seed like crazy too.
Yeah, you're not taking away from the sustainability of the species.
Yeah.
So
I think just know what you're doing. Like, don't go pick wild orchids or something.
But I think that's why, like, I more or less say don't, because there are a lot of people that just go out and do things without understanding what could happen.
And we did ask them.
They don't know what they're picking. Like there could be a very rare species of a flower that should not be picked, but no one's going to do their research before they go out and be like,
but then again, there's like the California super blooms. It's like those flowers are everywhere. But then I did ask them, because I've seen on mushroom foraging websites, it's like, is it okay that foraging is blowing up this much? And I did ask the people at the Denver Botanical Gardens, I'm like, is it okay with the mass amount of people that are getting into foraging mushrooms? And they're like, yeah, actually that's totally fine.
Okay.
I think like anything, you just got to educate yourself. And that's it. It's like when you go camping, don't leave,
the fire
stuff
going
all over the place.
Don't leave your toilet paper. Like,
like it's basic things like that is very logical, but you see it all the time.
Right.
And you think, how is that possible?
And then you lose faith in all of humanity.
And so you're like, don't go picking things, like, because most likely you don't know what you're picking. And you just shouldn't go support it. Rachel might have different views on it, but I think just like most people don't educate themselves to the point of what they should know to pick and what they shouldn't.
I think that is important to educate yourself. There's in South Carolina at Lansford Canal, there is a specific type of spider lily that only grows in that place in the world.
Yeah.
And it's only in this one little stretch of the Catawba River that is these rocky shoals it's very shallow, and you can, depending on the rainfall that year, you can just walk out there in the river. And they're protected by federal law. You cannot just go and pick one. You cannot just go dig one up. You cannot just go try to get a bulb and grow it at home in your little pond. You can't, without big fines and problems. And they exist out there, and people come from all over the world to come and see this specific type of spider lily. And then there are locals that go out there all the time in the river to fish and do whatever. They have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's shocking because they didn't, maybe there's a sign if you come from the right direction on the road, but if you didn't, you may not know that you're picking something that will potentially cost you a lot of money.
Yeah, and that's hard. It's such a hard, it's a very hard question to answer properly, honestly. I mean, it just is.
There's just people that abuse the system, and then there's people that respect the system.
Right.
So it's like, you don't want to encourage a whole audience of people that you know nothing about.
Of course. Oh, yeah, of course. And we wouldn't want that either. Do you press clovers at all?
We haven't. No, we've never gone out and tried to find 4-leaf clovers to press.
Or the flowers.
Clover flower. I actually did
one.
press them because there's something called the Herbal Academy. So we're going to make like a medicinal herb piece. And so I did find some wild clover, like the pink stuff, some of those flowers, and we pressed some
By
of those.
Garrett's though, right?
By Garrett, my cousin's house had some. And I think I found some, there was like a field. I went to a flower farm to pick up some flowers, Plume and Furrow Farm up in Lyons, Colorado. And there was like suddenly a bunch of wild clover flowering, like right next to their parking lot. So I did grab some there. Yeah.
All right.
I guess it's like one, it's like,
but
do you know it's 100% okay? It's next to like a driveway. I don't know.
I'm not judging. So
you don't go in like the national forest to do it.
I tend to lean more toward unless you figure out that it's protected somehow, and if it's on public land, which probably isn't the right attitude to have. But if it's a clover or something like that that's common everywhere, I don't see a problem with it. I picked clover in Scotland when I was there, so they can come after me if they want to. But I did because I wanted a clover from Scotland of all places.
Yeah.
Like that seems like
I think it's okay to
pressed in a book.
Clover.
Yeah. So
was it a 4-leaf clover?
You know, I searched a long time for 4-leaf clover in Scotland, and I probably could have spent my whole vacation doing that. And I didn't find one. I was very disappointed because I have a ton of 4-leaf clovers pressed in a book because that's the one thing that I will press and keep. And I have dozens now. Yeah, thank you.
So whenever you travel, do you pick a clover and press it?
No, but if I'm near, well, I can't say that that's not true. I don't always intentionally do that, but if there's a clover patch nearby, I find myself looking automatically, just habit, like they're going to be there. And so I found some, and there's, I bought a house once that, when I was in South Carolina, and the first day that I went to look for it, there was a patch of clover by the big oak tree, and it was really romantic. And I walked over and I looked down and I found 4-leaf clovers in that patch, and I was like, I have to buy this house. Because they have a 4-leaf clover.
Is that why you got the house?
That wasn't why, but it was a big. It was
a
big plus, yeah. And I mean, 4-leaf clovers are really just like a genetic mutation. Yeah. So it can happen anywhere. It's not like I don't want to believe the house was special because of that. It was special for other reasons. But it was definitely a plus that they had a 4-leaf clover patch that I could go pick.
I've been noticing, I don't know if I threw clover seed because everyone's like into the clover lawn because it's supposed to be more water wise. And I've suddenly noticed a bunch of clover start popping up in our yard, which we didn't have when we first moved in.
Oh.
Yeah. So we're bringing life back or just the weeds. I'm not sure.
Have you been in that house long?
This one we're in now
4 years?
A little over 4 years.
Okay.
But
so I wonder if the people before you just treated for that, like
probably.
And now that you haven't, maybe they have the ability to come back.
Yeah, maybe.
It was in the front?
It's on the side. It's like in the shade area off the side of the deck.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
you might have 4-leaf clovers out there.
Yeah, I'll have to look.
I don't know if I've ever found a 4-leaf clover.
Neither of us are 4-leaf clover hunters.
Okay. Well, it can be time consuming. And it's oh, go ahead.
I said I want to see your collection.
Okay. I'll be happy to show it to you. There are 4-leaf clovers in more places than you think. And if you get an eye for spotting them, because I didn't used to. Someone showed me that it was possible, and that's what made me realize that I could. And it's true. Like, that's true. You can go look at a patch of clover and find a 4-leaf clover in there. Many times there just are. And you just didn't spot it. There's so many, and they're clustered together so tight, and you're used to seeing sets of 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. And so you can kind of train your eye to spot the one that's 4. And I've found 5-leaf clovers before, too. It doesn't stop at 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have a 4.
You have one? A pressed 5-leaf
I have a 5-leaf clover that I pressed between stained glass because I do some stained glass work too.
Oh,
so
cool.
That was kind of a neat way to preserve it. So yeah. I'll show it to you after the show because it's upstairs. I have to go get it. But yeah, absolutely.
Are you like on your hands and knees with like a magnifying glass, just like?
No, usually I could just stand and look. I might
You
have.
can
It's
just stand
like
and see
you.
it?
It's probably terrible for my back and my neck, but a lot of times I can just stand there and look down, and it depends on if I'm wearing my glasses that day. But yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is I inherited my grandmother's Bible, and in paging through it, she had all these little notes, and I was like, I don't know what a lot of these are. Like, she just wrote little notes and things in there, and little bookmarks are in there. And when I was paging through it, when I first got it, I came across a 4-leaf clover pressed in it. And then as I turned through pages, there were more clovers pressed in it. And that's when I discovered my grandma did the same thing.
We've heard a lot of stories like that with pressing. Like, people will comment on our account and say, oh my gosh, this reminds me of my time with my grandma when I was younger. Like, we used to go press flowers, and so it's definitely been revived.
I love it. I love it. That's so awesome. Well, I'll have to send you some clovers too, maybe.
No, you keep them.
Okay.
You keep collecting.
Keith's like, we don't want any more press
Don't
flowers.
send us more things. People offer to do that all the time. They're like, I'm going to send you all my junk flowers. Like,
No.
There's been a couple of people
Well, there's been a couple of people that
like,
have collected, and I think I did say I actually was interested, because some of the stuff they were like, they took pictures and showed them, like, oh, that's like good press, and like I could totally use that in a piece. I just don't know what happened to that conversation.
It just got lost in the abyss of.
I think things get buried.
Messages.
And
yeah,
I feel slightly bad, like when things. Yeah, but like, I still feel bad. It's just like you're having a conversation, then something happens and it just gets buried. If you don't flag it, then it's impossible to find.
Yeah, I get it.
Without spending hours like pressing each message thing. So apologize to anyone that we did that too.
So what I want to know, I imagine this answer might be different for both of you. Maybe not. I don't know. I want to know what is the payoff for you? What is the thing that makes you go, this is what feeds me out of what I do. Like, this is why I do what I do.
Autonomy.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we're going to be able to move across the state to a town that really doesn't have many jobs. Like, we can take this wherever we go.
Yeah.
Which, for me, that's like Keith has been searching for something, and this one thing seemed to work.
I've been searching for, like, I guess 10 years now of something that I felt good at. Like, I was like, I'm good at this, like that feeling.
And also that felt good. Like, I don't think we're contributing a lot of crap to this world. Like, it's a pretty green
that we
business.
Do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like
it aligns with a lot of our values too, which
is big. Is like, we're pretty minimal people, and it's like, and then we really like nature quite a lot. So, meeting people that grow flowers they're pretty nice people.
Yeah, flower farmers are pretty awesome.
And like vegetable farmers and like stuff like that. It's just it really does hit on a ton of stuff that I think
a lot of boxes.
We've been searching for quite a long time, and you have to experiment with a lot of different things until you feel like, okay, this finally feels good. And that feeling is pretty amazing, but it definitely has come with, 10 years of trying a million different things to finally get to a spot where inside my stomach feels good. Yeah.
I love to hear that, though. That is so cool. I'm glad you found it.
Me too, because I was getting tired. Yeah, me too.
And you have, if anybody's interested in doing what you do or getting involved or learning more, you have a way to show them. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Rachel. Rachel she's the master.
No, we did make a how to press flower course because it was aside from what kind of glue we use, it was the most asked question. Like people would send us a message and be like, can you tell me how you do this? And it's like, okay. Once you get asked something enough, you're like, maybe we could, not to sound greedy, but like maybe monetize this since we have an audience right now. And so let's put it out there. And like, I think there are a lot of people who do press wedding bouquets that were kind of fearful that like, if you teach them the craft, they're going to open up a business and end up being your direct competitor.
Right.
And like, that's not really how we felt about it, because this is a lot of work. Like if you want to get into pressing flowers and you want to start a business pressing bridal bouquets, like
I say go for it.
Because
you bite off a lot.
It's exhausting. Like there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. So like if someone is,
it seems glamorous.
Yeah.
Like it seems like
yeah,
the best job in the world, but there's a lot of things that people don't see. That's just like,
Sure.
Holy smokes.
It's like any craft. Like there's a lot of things I admire. Like I think weaving is really cool on a loom, like the old fashioned way, or like, I don't know, editing videos. There's so many creative things that I would love to learn, or like freaking, I would love to have a flower farm, and there's courses on that. But if you're not going to put the time, or a lot of times people take the course and they're like, whoa, this is like way more than I ever thought it would be. And I'm just going to keep this a hobby. And like the greatest way to ruin a hobby is to turn it into a business.
Many times.
So that's like always something to consider. But yeah, we have our course out there. So
our course we did because like we from day one have always felt like what's the point of hiding this stuff? And so that's why we did create the course, and it is a paid course, but like there's an insane amount of information in it, and we're like updating, so there's no subscription. It's just like you just pay once and you get all the updates, blah, 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 whatever. But then that's strictly geared toward people that want to learn how to press flowers properly. Like there is a process, and like we go through a ton of different flower varieties. And you can then take that one variety, and there's other flowers that you can press the same way, blah, blah, blah. And then there's our YouTube channel, which is other material about like maybe how to reconstruct flowers and like how to glue,
how to make a flower press,
how to make a flower press, and like so there's other educational stuff. But the course, it took months and months and months to actually do, and the only reason it actually got done, honestly, is because literally it's an insane amount of hours. There was a guy, Bryn Moore, who sent us literally. This is how crazy it was. The day that Rachel, she had spent months filming flowers on her own of like how to like deconstruct press and like all this stuff. And then the day she was about to sit down to like maybe start editing, because editing is like its own absolute sanity. And and we didn't have any background in this. And so Rachel was starting to edit, and this email comes through, and this guy he's a professional videographer, does a lot of documentaries, like he's so well versed, has all the tools, all the equipment, and he sends us an email. He's like, I'll do a trade with you. And
so we still
owe him a bunch of stuff, but it would have never got done if it wasn't for him.
Wow.
And
so it was like the stars aligned.
It's literally like it was an opportunity that it was impossible to pass up. And it's absolutely grateful that we had that. And not a lot of people, it was an awesome opportunity to,
and I feel like
go through that process.
That's been like the story of our business. It's all just been really organic, and things just happen. Like we didn't try, like we were in New Zealand traveling for 2 months last winter.
We really needed to decompress.
Yeah. After our first season, we were just exhausted. So we around this time, we booked a trip to New Zealand for 2 months down the road. And we went there and we posted these 2 random reels. Like we didn't have much of a following. It was mostly local people who maybe wanted to send their bouquet to us who were getting married in Denver area. But then Keith posted these 2 reels that got like millions of views, and we just like saw our followers tick up by like the thousands.
But we had no idea, we didn't know anything about songs or like
Instagram
none at all. And it was just, it
Yeah.
was how the video looked and how I just did like a second each clip. And I think it was
Well,
just
it
a
was
right
like-
time.
yeah.
It was like right timing. And then it got shared and like people picked it up and like, I don't know how that all works. Like I look at cat videos on my
Right.
But I think it's like a lesson because a lot of people would be like, no, I can't take 2 months in New Zealand. Like that's too selfish or something, or like we're trying to grow a business. I think if you just, I don't know,
But we also didn't take a day off for 9 months.
but whatever. Like I think if
At
you just
all.
like do what feels right and start listening, like stop listening to what everyone else is saying you should do, and just like do what feels good for you. If it works, it works, and if it doesn't, it's like try something else.
If
You
we
know,
didn't
you can't
leave
force it.
our house, we would have kept working.
Yeah.
If we literally like, if we did not depart from our house and lock the door, we would have definitely have continued working because there's always work to be done.
Yep.
And that's the thing, like we had no balance. There was zero balance.
Well, I think
in
anyone who
anything.
has a decent business doing what we were doing will say
Struggle with.
it's exhausting.
balance,
They're all
yeah.
burned out. Yeah.
Wow.
Be nice to them.
Well,
Yeah.
weddings aren't stopping. So
Yeah.
there will always be weddings. So there will always be more work in that field.
We'll see if flower
Yeah.
pressing is a fad. Like I feel like it was in 50 years ago or something and it's coming back around. So now will it go out of fashion for another 50 years? I don't know. Will there be flowers in 50 years? Hopefully.
Oh.
I think it will be. I'm going to be optimistic and say yes.
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know. I think pressing flowers is something, it's quite enjoyable for us. It's actually pretty therapeutic pressing them and getting your system down and like seeing the changes happen and like changing out the wet paper for like bone dry paper. Like that's fun. Like
Sure.
it's
It can
relaxing.
be rewarding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like, oh my gosh, like this really hard flower like we pressed that had like an insane amount of moisture in it, is it pressed beautifully, and like that's because of all the work that you put into it. And so it's those satisfactions, like they're very gratifying. And then you get to design something with it, and every design is cool. Like it's just what you see. Like, are you happy with it? And it's all that matters, you know. Like,
Yeah.
and you can make cyanotype things, or you can make letters, or you can do resin. Like you can do an insane amount of crafts with pressed flowers.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so it's like whatever you want to do. Like there's no right or wrong, honestly. It's just like, yeah, just go for it.
That's great advice. That's great advice for anybody who is just starting out, or somebody who's just curious, or somebody who's even been doing that for a long time. There are always options. And
I think curious, you just have to keep being curious. I
Mhm.
think that's like honestly a good way to go, is if something is like piquing your interest just a little bit. Like you don't have to invest a lot into something. It's just, you know, just try it. It's like you just got it from our garden. That's how we started.
yeah, that was me. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was me sending a message. Sorry.
I'm so
No, you're
curious
fine.
about what's going on the side of the
I'll
screen.
tell you. I'll tell you in a minute. So you can find Keith and Rachel at flowerpressstudio.com and on Instagram at flowerpressstudio_. And you should go follow them because their art is amazing. And I'm just, I don't know, the first time I saw it, I was blown away. I thought it was so cool. And I wanted my whole wall to be this art. It's amazing. I don't know. It speaks to me personally. So I was so thrilled that you said yes to be on the show, and that I got to talk to you with or without Trey. Trey, I hope you're having a good vacation.
Go, Trey. Enjoy yourself.
Go enjoy yourself. Right. Maybe he's in New Zealand. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
So anyway,
Jealous.
to wrap up the show, I want to say that this episode, along with every episode probably forever and ever, is in memory of Joe Capone, our moderator, fellow comedian, passionate encourager and really amazing friend that is greatly missed. You can find us pretty much wherever you tune into podcasts for updates, announcements, more, and all kinds of extra things. You can tune into us on social media, on pretty much any social media under Modern Romantic. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.